Okay, welcome back to the Patreon. This is a video that's going to be made on the subject of Orisha. So we are definitely going to start getting into some different topics. Thank you for your patience. This is going to be the first of at least maybe 3 videos before we finish the month of August. We definitely wanted to get on some different subjects and start talking about Orisha. Now, as you see my hat, Child of Ashe, that is definitely in reference to a lot of times in reference to Ellegua or Eshu, which you hear me say both names, which we're definitely going to get into the subject of who is Ellegua, who is Eshu, why the different names, and how they kind of tie in together and what they mean and what should you refer, when you want to speak to Ellegua or Eshu. But definitely we're going to get into the subject of Orisha, and I think we should start off with the first Orisha being Ellegua, which is in turn going to give some information as to why he's first, what are his colors, and why he has his priority and his definitely his presence in Ifa and his presence in all the Orishas and his role that he's played throughout time, and getting into his mysteries and a lot of misconceptions and a lot of definitely a lot of different things that are associated with the Legua and associated with his characteristics and his personalities and all of that. So definitely want to get into all these kind of things and subjects and get right into some really good kind of deep understanding of this, really profound, intricate Orisha. All right. So as you know, we already talked about the different cosmology of energies in reference to Olofi, Olojumare, Ifa, and Orisha, and what and is an Orisha. So we went through that already. So now that you know what is an Orisha, let's get into the different energies that are Orishas, and starting off with Ellegua. All right. So Ellegua is an Orisha that is very, very attuned and associated with a young child, a young boy. As history goes, he was born into the life of a prince. So that is why he's always associated as a young boy, because that was his time on earth. So let's get into some different aspects, when we start speaking of Orisha and Ellegua and Eshu. He was a young prince, and that is why his time on earth, and he's always, and that was to the end until he passed as that young prince, became an Egun, and then got transferred into an Orisha. So that is the last remembrance of him and how he was stayed always as a young boy and as a young prince. But before that, we get into Ellegua and how he became a prince, we have to start from the beginning. And the Odu Oyukumeji. Oyukumeji is considered the oldest, the most antique Odu, because that is born the darkness. Out of the darkness, everything came from that. So before everything was born, everything got created, there was always considered with the Olojumare, there was an Eshu. There was always something present, another force that was working together with Olofi, bringing that balance. And Eshu, even though he was with the Orumules and he was there throughout the creation, all the different types of Orumules were on earth and were getting born and becoming Orisha, after all the Orumules left, and then the Orishas became in order to become an Orisha, you have to have some type of an assigned destiny. And then with that destiny, you go into earth and then you pass and you become an Orisha. So all the people were aware then of these Orishas once they had lived amongst them and died and passed on and became immortalized, and they became who they are revered as Orisha. So I guess at one point in time, Eshu didn't come down. He was up there, he was witnessing, he was a Rumules, he came up and he was with Olojumare, and he was witnessing a lot of the things, but he realized that he was being left out of a lot of the things that the Orishas would always be propitiated and offered and revered, and he almost seemingly forgot about Eshu. So, and a lot of the patakis that happen with Eshu and Ellegua always come about when he's being provoked or when he's being taunted. And a lot of the Orishas were getting together and they were taunting him and kind of making fun of him. And he warned them. He said, you know what, if I will show you my powers and I will show you what I can do, and I will become before you, and I will always be first. Not only will I come there, and for that, that was kind of like his like judgment on them for making him do what he had to do. So he definitely wanted to be part of that group of energies, which were Orisha. And, this kind of entitled him, yes, in order to be everywhere, he had to be there at that time in the different forms that had manifested. Okay, so from then on, he went to Earth and he became an Orisha. But his destiny that he chose to come to Earth was a young prince. Now, there are varying patakis. There are varying patakis and how he became this young prince. And I'm going to give you really quickly two stories that come out of how he became a prince. One, he chose his destiny. He became a prince. He became royalty. But as the story goes, he was very mischievous. He was always, doing his things. It was very hard to control. He came with this knowledge and this energy and this free will, even though he wanted basically to come into Earth and live about the Earth and start enjoying all the things that Earth had to offer, all the hunting, all the herbs, all the food and the life and everything else. But he didn't realize that he chose a destiny. He chose this life, and this life was as in royalty. And he thought, becoming in royalty, that's the best thing. I'm gonna have prestige, I can have all of this, not realizing that he enjoyed all the other things. But as a prince, he had a lot of duties, he had a lot of responsibilities, and he was always being after to take care of the castle duties, to take care of royal duties and all these other things. And until one day he, was almost forgetting as his prince that he was not Eshu. He was not this immortal thing yet, and when he went about in his one of his travels and he went into the forest and hunting, it is said that he found this coconut and became very sick, and he eventually died. Now, what happened was, there's a couple of variations of what happened with this coconut, but the story is that this coconut, most seemingly universally accepted, is that this coconut, this obi, was glowing, and it was shedding this light, and it was luminous, and it was this profound thing. And he took it home, and when he took it home, and he said that he put it behind his door in his chambers by the door, and it said that he died that night. Okay, so he became very ill, and he became and he became sick. And he died. So they mourned him, but they realized that when this happened upon his death, everything started to go bad. Everything started to go down with him. All the crops, all the animals, everything started going in a very desolate kind of nature. And they started realizing, when he went back into his room, they started putting the two and two together. They started realizing, this kind of started happening with his death. What is going to happen? He went and looked at the coconut, which was this, that used to be like his thing that he found that he brought home, and it was all rotted, and it was all decayed and everything else. So what they did was they decided to replace it with a rock, with a stone. They figured, this stone doesn't rot. The stone could be his image. And when they put the stone right by where the coconut was, the image and the apparition of Ellegua was there, and they saw that was his representation. And not only that, when that happened, when they replaced it with the stone, everything changed. Everything changed amongst the crowd. Everything changed amongst the food, the crops, the animals, even the weather. And they started propitiating. They made that a tradition of worshiping that Eshu for help. And also, to kind of bring that back, when they were going through all these troubles and all these times, they tried petitioning all the other Orishas for help. They tried petitioning every single one. None of them worked. But when they went into the chamber and replaced the coconut with the stone, and everything came back, and they saw Eshu's face, that's when it became immortalized. They realized that he was not gone. His spirit, he became who he is today. And that's when he became Ellegua, the one that was born inside the home behind the door. And actually, since they realized, that it was Ellegua, this energy, that when they actually, the story goes, they ended up feeding it a rooster and consecrating, doing some sacrifice. I believe it was a white rooster. everything changed. So from then on, they didn't even bother with all the other rishis. They would always come to Ellegua first to solve their problems. And that's one of the stories of why he's first, but it's also the main, very popular story of how he became a prince and how he became from Eshu into Ellegua as an Orisha. And over time, those two energies became one. There's another varying story that talks about where a king, again, royalty, a king that couldn't, he was with his wife. She couldn't bear any children. She was very, distraught over this. And he didn't. And she said, "You know what? Go find another wife. Go find someone else. I want you to have children. I want you to pass on your bloodline and everything else." And he was no, this is not it. You're my wife. I love you and everything else. He was very dedicated and loyal to her. But one day she became so distraught, and while what was happening, she had said to go and leave the compound in secrecy. And during her travels in the forest, she found this coconut that was bringing out this luminous light, and it was bringing out this messages and everything else. And she broke it open and she drank the coconut water and the coconut juice. And it is said that when she was laying down that night, when she was sleeping by the tree, that the actual coconut tree actually says, "You have drinking my energy, my blood. For that, you will be with child." So, and then go share this with your husband. So she immediately went back to the king, and he was so rejoiced at having her back. She explained what had happened to narrate the story. And yes, within 9 months, they bore, a son, and they named him Ellegua. But before that happened, it said that the tree said, "You will have many children, but the first one you must come and name after me and honor me and bring him to me. If not, you will have to pay me that debt." So after everything that had happened, they did forget about that promise. They were just so rejoiced. They were just, moving on with their life and everything else. And they ended up forgetting. And it is said that over time, when this was a young prince, it wasn't until the young boy, this prince, actually found Ellegua, actually went and found the same coconut, brought it home. And when the light came out, it says that he passed, and he ended up becoming, very sick, and then he passed. So it said that death passed to him, and also when he became Ellegua at the same time. But two stories kind of show about the coconut as a representation of Ellegua, and also the stone, because it is said that they kept this coconut. They named him after the coconut, and the coconut after him. And actually, when they wanted to keep it going, they said they replaced the coconut with the stone, and that became history. Two things became after that, that actually became the tradition about honoring the Orishas and the Rumilas, and after they called Otanes, and actually the Ota and the stone. So all the Orishas subsequent after Ellegua, when they became an Orisha, and they became honored by stones. Okay? And that is how you have what we have today. All right. So some of the other things I want to talk about, why Ellegua is red and black. And there's a couple of variations of stories that will go into some small batakis of why he's also first. So how did he get his colors red and black? Well, there's a famous story everybody talks about, but I can give you the Odu. The Odu is Owani Chobe, Owani Ogbe. And in Owani Ogbe, it is said that there was two friends that were inseparable, were very, let's say that, everything they did with each other. They married the same person, they married like a woman at the same time. They lived houses at the same time. They shared everything. Everything was a beautiful relationship. And until one day they went to Ifa for consultation. They went to a Babalao. And the Babalao says, "You need to offer sacrifice to an Orisha called Ellegua. Otherwise, there's going to be a disaster between you guys. There's going to be a disagreement." They laughed at the Babalao. They said, "You know what? You have no truth to what you say. You're wrong." You know what I mean? And needless to say, they didn't do the Ebo. And it wasn't until later on that Ellegua came and asked the Babalao, and asked if these two friends and these two gentlemen had offered sacrifice. And the Babalao says, "No, in fact, they laughed at me." Ellegua says, "Okay, I got this." So this is when Ellegua decided to wear black and decided to wear red. And he actually wore an outfit. And he, right at the right moment, he walked right in between them. And they immediately started commenting and started out with small conversation. Wow, look at him dressed in red. Who is this person? Look, he's dressed in black. Wow. And he started getting into an argument. He started creating dissension. And things got so bad eventually. They were so stuck on each other's point of view that they ended up getting into a duel, into a fight where one of them had to leave. There was actually said that in some story I heard that there was, to a flip of a coin, that one of them had to leave, left it to chance, and one of them had to go and one was able to stay, but they were separated for life. It wasn't until 20 years later it is said that they went back to this compound. They saw that this Orisha, Ellegua, was there. And as they were entering to different sides of these compound, and there was a statue there of red and black. And as they were coming, they both saw the one sides of each other. But it wasn't until they went to pay prostrate to Ellegua that they saw the statue, the original statue, that it was both colors. And they realized that their mistake, and realized what Eshu had created. Needless to say, they asked for forgiveness, they paid the sacrifice, and it showed that the Babalao's word had come to pass, and that they doubted. There's a lot of messages in that. For one, it was said that after that, it became his symbol, red and black. You know what I mean? And that showed that he's always going to create two realities, two perspectives, and a lot of times it is said, and this is what I want to talk about a lot, and this is what I've said before, and I know some other people have also expressed the same. I heard it from a couple of Babalaos too that spoke some really great lives and some great videos talking about Eshu getting a bad rap. And this is something that I've been preaching as well, and they call him the trickster. And a lot of times the word trick is feel like something is being wrong to you. But what if you're going down the wrong path? Right? What if you're going down this path that's not good for you? And Ellegua creates a confusion and tricks you to go to another path. Did he do you wrong or did he do you right? A lot of times, he gets this bad rap because he wants to create a chaos. He wants to create an environment or a situation that you can find yourself into a different situation that is the correct one and the correct reality. So he has to create a confusion. He has to create a chaotic event for you. And this is to put you sometimes in the right. If you're going down this place, he has to break it down. He has to break that path. And sometimes he has to show you a different reality. So in essence, these two colors that are with Ellegua are a reference to the different realities, the different kind of perspectives and the different choices, the different, that two things can be right, which is a paradox. That's also been described in some other, teachings that I've seen, is describe them as a paradox. And that is true. Those are a paradox, meaning just two different roads or realities that may seem to contradict each other, but at the end of the day can be true and kind of respond to each other. So definitely Eshu Ellegua represents these kind of dualities, and that's Eshu. He does, it's also a reference to the yin and yang. He is that yin and yang. He's those two energies that play off of each other. It definitely coming to create something. So, sometimes, when Ellegua or Eshu has to create, a confusion or create an alternate pathway for you, it is for a greater good. So ultimately, Ellegua Eshu is definitely, working in your favor. He's definitely working for your better destiny. And these are things that most people don't understand. If he's creating a mishap, if he's creating, sometimes what he may create, what could be your misfortune, is what is your actual blessing and fortune itself. Okay, so for instance, if he creates you to get a roadblock, right? And he creates a road construction, or he makes you hit a pothole and gets a flat tire, do you not, that could be him, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're cursing and you're so upset. And it was Ellegua who created it. It was created because there was an accident that could have been right up down the road. There are things he needed to create an alternate universe, an alternate reality for you. This goes all. If he can just delay you a millisecond, can change the happenings and the universal complexity of the matrix of life and have you run into someone else and just about 1 second see someone else and run into them, or have that thought, or have that vision, or have that sight, a signal or a message. There are so many things that Ellegua is creating, and he's everywhere. He's definitely the epitome of the word being omnipresent. All right, so definitely understand that Eshu is not here to cause harm. He's definitely, one of the things that he's doing, though, is he's bringing balance to Ifa and bringing balance to Orunmila. There are no greater forces out there than the Orishas, in particular Ellegua, because he's pretty much like the common denominator to Ifa. Ifa cannot exist without it. We need Eshu for Ebo. We need Eshu to help things that we doing manifest. We need him to actually support and respect Orunmila and the word of Orunmila. If he sees that you haven't followed his advice, he's definitely going to be right there creating mischief and wrong in your life, but to bring a greater reality and truth to Ifa. So in essence, you created that kind of universe that he's just upholding, that Orunmila said would manifest, so it's definitely trusting in his pathways to our greater good. All right, so that's something to understand, but this is why Eshu, a lot of times, the Opele is said to have been given to Ifa Orunmila by Ellegua Eshu. Eshu is seen on all the Opan markings that we have on the Opan Ifa. A lot of the Opan, you see his face. Eshu is definitely paramount to having Ifa transcend. You see a lot of effigies, you see a lot of things regarding Eshu. So this is the cosmology. This is the whole energy of Eshu Ellegua. And the whole thing about the trickster thing, and the whole thing is the evil, and he's the devil, and all of that is, first of all, the devil is more of a Abrahamic, European concept of evil. And, just because Eshu is the duality and neutral kind of force creating havoc in your life, or is creating havoc because, Ifa says this and you want to disrespect Ifa, he needs to do these things here. Okay, but this is him administering sometimes punishment or judgment to get you to a better reality, get you to understand. If you just went ahead and did your own thing, even though Ifa said that this is the road you need to take, otherwise it's not going to go best for you, and you continue to go this and it still goes right, you're never going to have any guidance. The world would then be in chaos. There has to be structure. There has to be order. He has to have consequence for his actions, so he can bring back to Ifa the ultimate superior guidance. That we need him. If that, there definitely would be chaos. There definitely would be evil running around the world if there was no consequence. Okay? So he's upholding us. He's making us uphold to our own character and our own faith and our own judgment. So that's all what Eshu does. But ultimately, we understand that his colors are red and black. Okay, it is said that when he was born, he came into the world as a prince, multiple batakis. There's another bataki, why he gets first. There's a couple of, one bataki in where he saved Olofi. When actually Olofi himself, the energy was actually on Earth. But Olofi got really sick and was susceptible to the earthly domains. And when he tried to depart, he actually becoming very sick. And actually, when they went ahead and petitioned all the rishis to save him, and this particular time, Eshu Beleke was in the forest, and he was out, and he was very, it's a path where he likes to be by himself. He's very indignant, he's very irritable, and he's working with the herbs and all of this stuff. But they actually went out and found him. He created a potion or a mixture for Olofi to drink and was healed. And Olofi then honored him to be the one that would always be respected first. That's one of many that he actually created good. There's one particular famous Bataki that talks about Ellegua, Ogun, and Osun, and how Ellegua also became first and how he eats first. It is said that when Ellegua was a young boy, along with Ogun and Obatala's wife, which is Ogun's mother, Yememu or Yemu. There's different kind of variations of it, but it was the wife of Ogun. that was the mother of Ogun. I'm sorry, the wife of Obatala was the mother of Ogun, and Ogun started getting these very incestuous, immoral, really, evil kind of thoughts in his head about his own mother. And actually, he devised a plan. And he devised a plan that because when Obatala would be gone, he'd always have his rooster, Osun, standing guard, watching and being his eyes when he was away, warning him of impending danger. But what Ogun would do, he would take the food that was served for dinner and for the day, and he would take it, and he would take Ellegua's portion, and he would give it to the rooster and feed him to a point where the rooster got so that overly in a drunken food stupor that he would be lackadaisical, now watch, and then he would lock Ellegua out the house, and he would go in and have his way with his mom, Obatala's wife. And he was creating these really heinous acts until one day Ellegua went to Obatala because he started looking thin. He started starving. He was really sick. And, Ellegua actually went to Obatala and says, I hate to, since you're asking, I'm going to tell you this, but something is not right. When you leave, first of all, I don't get fed. He gives it to Osun, and he locks me out the house, and I don't know what's going on in the house. So, I wanted to talk to you about this. So Obatala created a plan. He decided to leave. But he actually started to wait, and he wanted to watch. And as he watched, he saw everything that was happening. He saw the Osun falling over with food and full. He saw Ellegua pounding on the door, trying to get in and yelling at Ogun to stop. And then when he realized what had happened, he came back. And when Ogun saw Obatala, it seems like this whole trance that was in that just snapped. And he realized what he did. And from then on, he goes, you don't need to curse me. Do not curse me. I curse myself. And he said, from then on, I'm going to go live in the forest. I'm never going to be amongst men. And I'm going to teach the world humanity. I won't be the Lord of forging. He goes, I'm going to teach this to humanity so they can be and not have to go to me and relinquish this title and go alone into the forest. Obatala agreed to this, and Obatala said this is going to be the way it's going to be. And also, from then on, he cursed Osun to always stand guard and never sleep, and always get the scraps that were going to be given, and only can eat unless he's eating with the warriors. So he was actually given the leftovers. He also decreed at that point in time to make Ellegua, he says, from this moment forward, you will eat first. And you will eat first for starving. You will eat first before any Orisha and the beginning and the ending of time. He goes, this is going to be your decree. And he told Osun, anytime you eat is always going to get the leftovers. And that's usually how it works when we feed Ellegua and Ogun. They just kind of eat together. It's Ellegua gets a rooster and Ogun, sometimes he can get a pigeon, but it's only because, Ellegua is eating. And that is a very famous bataki behind those things. So we understand why the coconut and the stone and why he's put behind the door and how it started throughout time, the colors, the red and black, why he eats first, why he's so important, amongst the Orishas and with the Lofi, and why he works hand in hand with Ifa and Babalawo. So there's other variants batakis, but that's basically his concept, of what he's doing for us and what he's protecting us from. So, yeah, that's basically, the first lesson I wanted to teach on Ellegua. We're going to talk more and more about him and the different paths that we have. But basically, that is, I think, a very good start in reference to Ellegua, okay, and to Eshu. So that's how you get the differences, the Ellegua and Eshu. And that's how you get the colors. And that is why he's a young boy. And that is why he eats first. And that is why he's omnipresent. And that is why he's connected to Ifa. And this is why he's considered the trickster. But what is the reality behind it? And ultimately, why he's so favored by Alofi and the Orishas and Orunmila. Okay, so for those, I wish this helped and brings some kind of more deeper understandings. We will have some follow-up videos. I usually got to do 1 and 2, so we don't have too many long videos. But this is the part 1 of Ellegua. Maybe we'll talk some more in part 2 about Eshu. Under this video as it's posted, post any more questions that you may have on Eshu and Ellegua, and in part 2 video, I can address that. So I can get an idea of what you want to know more about the different paths, the different things, consecrations when he becomes an Orisha priest, what animals he may eat, a type of offerings, and things like that. So when you petition Ellegua Eshu, one thing I want to talk about is Eshu's omnipresent. He is everywhere. He is in the rows and the crossroads because he identifies the choice and decisions. But we can talk more about how he's made and why he has a charge and not just a stone. When he's consecrated, all the other rishis are just stones, but he has a charge. And the reason why he has a charge when it's made, it's cement, is because he has a charge to show where he's everywhere. So when he went to give him his identification, when all the other rishis are otanas and they represent an energy, the mountains, Ochosi the hunter, Ogun the forge, Obatala, this, and it was pretty much a structure. But when it came to Eshu, he's an embodiment of everything. So this is why when Eshu is made, there are ingredients that are put in there, dirts and lands and different things from different energies, whether it be the ocean, the lakes, the rivers, the mountains, the rocks, and that is always part. So when you feed that Eshu, and you work with that Eshu and he's consecrated, you are getting and feeding the Eshus in all elements that he has. That's what's very important, that it is made by a Babalawu, so it can consecrate the stone that will go inside and all the different ingredients that need to go in there and incorporate Ifa, because there is a Bataki where he made Babalawu and became Ifa. All right? Thank you. Have a great and blessed day. Mafere Eshu.